Today, we're going to discuss Part 13A, Cutting Your Financial Losses from the Junk Wax Era for Baseball Cards. Now, many individuals purchased and became interested in baseball card collecting around the 1980s, and that later on, they expected to sell these cards or to basically recoup the value and have struggled because of the glut in the market that's referred to as the baseball junk card era. And so what I'm going to discuss today is sort of how to kind of recoup some of those losses that and perhaps get as much monetary return as you can from them. You're not going to make a whole lot, but at least you can recoup your losses. So in this strategy, what we want to look at is that we have to make an informed and strategic sale of those cards that were collected somewhere between 1980 and 2000. That era sometimes goes from 1983, 1984, 1994, 1997, but pretty much that kind of glut of cards, certainly from 1980 to 2000. And we must understand that this is always possible because it seems over the course of time, there will be always those who are committed to collecting, not just investing or making great profits, but just collecting the cards of their favorite players and heroes. So the cards that, as we kind of look through all the different aspects of where you can sell them, and certainly eBay being a big one, but there's many others. And when you look at their sales, that the ones that sell the best and seem to get the best value are the cards that are rookies, or the ones that made the Hall of Fame, or the ones predicted to make the Hall of Fame, insert cards, subsets that are basically were contained in the sets or basically in addition to those sets, and specialty cards, meaning era cards, autograph cards, relic, and refractors. Those would be the ones that are going to get value, and you can recoup some of your money. And then as the market kind of goes up and down, and you will basically see the ebb and flow, that when the market tends to take a move up, then those cards that are probably more valuable need to kind of sell them during those times, like the Griffey 1989 Upper Deck rookie or the 1980 Ricky Henderson rookie card. And sometimes just selling in bulk in terms of selling a lot of people's favorite cards together, the entire 17 years they were in the big leagues, or those cards that were rookies in the particular year, selling those cards together often carry a monetary benefit. So I have talked about this in previous discussions, and you can review my things on YouTube that I've talked about these, but these are the big things that you need to consider when you're selling your cards, whether it's during this junk era or any era. And that is that vintage cards will always kind of demand the higher prices, but rookies and graded cards, certainly graded makes a big difference, but that's always a gamble because, you know, a 10 might sell really, really high, but it doesn't take much to bring it down to a 6 or 7 where the profit is much less. Hall of Famers, the brand of that card during that particular year, that particular brand, the scarcity, kind of knowing which cards were scarcer than others at the time, the popularity of the player, not just in terms of making the Hall of Fame, but also that it was a well-liked player. Certainly within the collecting world, there are parallel cards, and so lots of different cards of the same player are made for the same year. Inserts, we've talked about that. High number cards, especially, but this probably refers more to the vintage sets. Cards with eras, the timing of when you sell the card, and when someone's going to make the Hall of Fame, when someone's going to break a record, and so forth. Team affiliation, Yankees cards tend to still sell more than some of the league teams that don't seem to get as much attention, the card design, what it looks like, and then the player's cultural reference. So we're just going to look at the most valuable brands and sets of the junk wax era. So we just kind of look year for year, what would be the cards that would sell the most, not necessarily make you a fortune, but would sell the most. And it's time to kind of, you know, cut your losses and recoup on these. So the 1984 Donruss set, the 1984 Fleer update set, the 1985 Donruss set, the 1986 Donruss set, the 1987 Fleer, the 1988 Score, the 1988 Fleer, 1989 Upper Deck, and the 1980 Fleer update. So all of those particular cards are more valuable than others that are kind of available. Those were the particular cards in those Rookies Hall of Famers that are available for people who enjoy collecting cards. Then we move into the 1990 Leaf set, the 1991 set by Topps Stadium Club, the 1991 Fleer Ultra Update set, the 1992 Bowman, the 1993 Bowman, the 1994 Bowman, and also the 2000 Bowman draft picks and rookie prospects. So in terms of that era, we'll say from 1984 to 1994, as well as later on, these would be the kind of sets and boxes and packs and cards that basically would carry the most value. So there are also, within this particular era, there were actually 3 groups of cards that are still very high priced and very valuable that you'll see if you kind of look for these cards on the different areas like eBay. So the 1993 Topps Finest, that Finest set was first released in 1993, and it was a super premium set. And that particular set has been so successful over the last 30 consecutive years. 18 packs for $25 each per box, 12 boxes per case. We're selling about for $300 per box a day. So certainly of all the midst of the junk era, this was kind of in limited supply and therefore still valuable today. It was limited to 4,000 cases. And new technology was introduced with this particular set, which introduced refractors, which made it also very popular. And 1996, with each subsets, there were bronze, common, silver uncommon, and gold rare cards. So these were some of the cards that, as they say, it kind of has gone on for 30 years between 2017 and 2022. And in 1997, they came out with embossed refractors. So we look back in time at these 1993, 94, and if you were to look them up and try to purchase them now, they are going for a higher price than most cards are, even of the star players. So it's not necessarily you get a rookie or a particular player that is not so well known, but all of these cards really go for a premium price, as you see here. So you can look through these cards from 93, 94. You can look at the players and see, well, of all the players, even amidst the rookie cards, these cards are sometimes going for a higher price tag. We look at Topps Finest from 1993 to 2004. You can see the different designs and so forth, and it continues to be popular amongst collectors. And then from 2005 to 2016, you can see the different designs and so forth. And again, the theory is that this is scarcity, it's a fine card, and it continues to be a high-priced collectible item. Now we move to, in 1991, the Donruss Elite. This was actually a groundbreaking set, limited to 10,000 cards, which may not seem like a small amount to you, but compared to the glut of cards that's available for every player, it was significantly smaller. And this particular insert kind of ran from about 1996 to 1998. And if you look at these on eBay and whatever, you'll see that they still go for a premium price. So the first set of serial numbered cards, less than 1 per case of these cards were available. A finite set of print runs, making the card makers accountable for how many they actually did produce. In 1991, it was a 10-card set, and it had a limited Ryan and Sandberg autograph contained within that set. Some use metal detectors to try to cherry pick cases and boxes. In other words, people will go into these cases and actually tell which boxes contain those key cards that would eventually, as it turned out, be very valuable. And 1992 was a 10-card set with an autographed Ripken available. In 1993, they had 2 sets. One was the Dominators, and one was the main set of 20 and 18 cards. In 1994, there was a 12-card set, and in 1995, there was a 12-card set. So here we have the examples of the 91, 92, 93, and the dominant Donruss Elite cards that were available. And again, these are still going for a considerably higher price on the open market. We also see now the 1994 and 1995 Donruss Elite, and a good-looking card, and again, in a scarce supply compared to other cards. Now we move into the third of this kind of premium sets with the 1991 Topps Desert Shield set. And so this was kind of a very unique set, though the set itself, the 1991 Topps, was not at all basically a premium set. But if it was a Desert Shield, that just kind of elevated it to a much more valuable card. And it was due to a special run of 1991 Topps cards. They were identical, but for a gold foil Desert Shield logo up in the right-hand corner. And it was made specifically and only for military members deployed as part of the Gulf War. And it was limited to 7,000 of each card. And so these special cards were condition sensitive. What that means is that given them to those military members deployed, there was no supplies to take care of them. They wouldn't immediately put into a top loader plastic and preserved. And so that the cards that kind of made it through all this and back to the States would have to be very careful and kind of even made the car rare in that sense. So there also is an historical significance to that in terms of the history of the US and the Gulf War. So these were the most valuable Desert Shield cards. The other ones that I referred to earlier, these cards, some of them maybe you never heard of the players, but even though they are still being sold at high value. But the ones that are selling for the highest value are like the draft pick of Chipper Jones, the Nolan Ryan, the Greg Maddux, Ken Griffey's, Cal Ripken's, Frank Thomas's, Don Mattingly, Barry Larkin, and Barry Bonds. So these cards, if you got these are still going for quite a high price and can demand a significant monetary return in sales. So now summarizing all of this together as we look at of the cards that are in the junk wax era, where would it best, and you have the best potential to sell these at a considerable price that you would get a return on your expenditures. So Topps Finest, Donruss Elite, and Topps XIII-A Shield, I've already talked about. These are kind of the elite cards of that particular era and still are selling for high price. And then if you purchased at that time and you look up these cards, which are the most valuable cards, the particular card for the particular sets, if they are like Topps Tiffany or Bowman Tiffany, Fleer Glossy, or Bowman Chrome, they're going to demand a higher price. And then within in the sets themselves, there are all these update sets, the Rookie and Traded, Topps Traded, and Donruss Rookies. All of these will have key cards that were somewhat limited compared to the general sets. And then if you look for cards that, okay, I have a particular card for a particular player, which card is the most valuable, then it would be according to these sets in terms of 84, 85, 86 Donruss, 87 through 89 the Fleer, 89 Upper Deck, 90 Leaf, 91 Stadium Club, and 92 through 94 Bowman. So again, which cards you have will depend on which brands that you purchase those cards, and that will make them more resellable. And then as we move further beyond this, we see that now the cards are becoming extremely expensive with the Panini Flawless, the Topps Definitive, Topps Dominant Icon, and that's kind of the wave of the future. So this kind of gives you an overview in terms of which cards do I have. Let's look through them and let's see which ones I'm going to be able to get a significant return for what I paid for them originally. So now we'll just kind of go down the list. We'll go into this in greater detail in future talks, but we look at, okay, let's look at my Topps cards, which are the most valuable cards from 1982 to 1997. And these are them. So if you have these particular cards, that is going to have value. And some of them still hold some value, particularly like the Cal Ripken Fleer update card. You'll also have cards that were before 1984, like the Boggs and Gwynn and Sandberg. And then you'll also have cards like Chipper Jones, we already talked about, that the Desert Shield card that he has. And then there are era cards, like you'll see for the Carlos Beltran, where there's a card with his name on it has a different picture of another player, and the other player has Carlos Beltran picture, as well as you'll see with the Frank Thomas era, which is worth quite a bit if you're lucky to get one of these where his name is missing in the logo. Now we go to the 1991 most valuable Stadium Club rookies and stars, and we see we have the rookie, and basically probably one of the highest rookies in general sets was the Jeff Bagwell. And then we have players that probably will never make the Hall of Fame, but they were popular players such as Manny Ramirez and Jason Gambi, as well as David Justice and Luis Gonzalez. And then you have other players that like Frank Thomas is not his first year, but he certainly carries a lot of interest, as well as Sammy Sosa. And then there was another player that did well, especially if you're a Detroit fan, in terms of Travis Fryman. And then you have the popular kind of unique card of Nolan Ryan in a tuxedo. We moved it to the Leaf, 1990, 1991, and we see that we're going to see some key players that if you have these cards, they will kind of warrant a significant fee. And that would be the Frank Thomas as well as the Sammy Sosa. But there are other players within this set as well as Larry Walker that can kind of get a good return. And then it kind of diminishes some, but still holds its value as far as a good set as we go into 1991. And then we go back to the 1984 set we've talked about, which is the company's most successful, probably because of many things in terms of the players, their full face shot, as well as action shots. And then you have cards of the 1985. Again, Donruss, we said that there was a popular set in terms of the star players and even players that were rated rookies and so forth. Didn't make the Hall of Fame, but still well known. And then 1985 set, as well as people like Darryl Strawberry. Of course, we have Pete Rose and Steve Carlton, as well as Ricky Henderson. Then we move to the 86, 87 Donruss, now kind of diminishing in its popularity, but still kind of that particular year, the most popular card to achieve. And we see the Jose Canseco, which went for a considerable amount back in his heyday before he kind of got, evolved that he was possibly and probably involved in steroids. And you have other rookies like Freddie McGriff, that's a possible future Hall of Famer, as well as people like Paul Neal rookie card and others. And then we go to 1987, where we have a lot of kind of well-known rookies, rated rookies, like with the Greg Maddux, which is a very popular card, as well as Bo Jackson and Mark McGwire, and then other popular players, as you see, that are listed here. So the top 10 Fleer baseball rookie cards of this 1980s was the Cal Ripken, the Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs, Ryan Sember. These were the 1983 kind of star players of the time. Then you also had the 1984 Don Mattingly, along with the Roger Clemens and Kirby Puckett. Then you got that Jose Canseco card, as well as Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey. Other brands may have kind of outdone the Fleer, but these were still and still are kind of cards that are more likely to sell during this young card era. Now we move to Upper Deck, which came out with a blast in 1989, and then somewhat diminished in value over time as with the competition, but some of the best Upper Deck cards to kind of have in your collection. And then now it's possible to sell them and get some return on your expenses. And that certainly, even though it's not nearly as high as it was in the day, for the Ken Griffey card and rookie Randy Johnson, as well as John Smoltz. Then you have the Roberto Alomars, and a lot of these players that you can kind of recognize that many of them are Hall of Famers, and therefore are going to commonly have interest, so people will purchase them, as well as Chipper Jones and Jim Thome. And now we have Derek Jeter. So we look at the Derek Jeter card. This may be the most valuable of the 1990s, as well as the Alex Rodriguez, even though it's questionable if he'll ever make the Hall of Fame. Okay, then we go to 1989 to 1984. Other players that, basically are recognizable, popular for card collectors, people like Joe Girardi, not so much as a player, but as a manager. Joey Bell was very popular and so forth, but it had some negativity to his personality, but still is recognizable, as well as people like Deion Sanders, a two-sports player, and still you kind of will always have the Derek G cards being popular with many people who collect baseball cards. Moving on to the score, especially that era, 1980, 1983, you got some cards that are just interesting, kind of collectibles. They're not going to, demand a lot of money because there was a lot of them made, but you certainly see the popular Bo Jackson football and baseball card. You have the Griffey card. You have kind of unique cards like the Dream Team, where you have highlights of special players, particularly a lot of Nolan Ryan kind of highlight cards, and all of these kind of for collectors that make it popular and kind of complete their collection. So they're certainly sellable. Now we look at the Bowman most valuable rookie cards of the 1990s, and even though their 1989 and 1990 did not kind of gather as much interest as the Upper Deck and certainly the Leaf cards, but many of them, when Bowman really started to get popular in 1991, are of key players that made the Hall of Fame and very popular. So one of the cards that kind of was a sleeper was the Mike Piazza card, as well as the Mario Rivera and the Trevor Hoffman cards. And then you have some possible future Hall of Famers in Carlos Delgado and in Billy Wagner. And then you have the cards, like I say, of the 89, where you still have the Ken Griffey rookie card and Randy Johnson card and John Smoltz, the Larry Walker, Sammy Sosa's, Juan Gonzalez, Mike Mussina. Cards are very popular. And then you move into Roy Halladay and Suzuki, and certainly now we have the Pujols card, which is going to be extremely valuable, even though it's during the junk card era, depending on if you can have this Bowman card. The Bowman most valuable rookies, again, of the 90s, with the some of them may not necessarily make the Hall of Fame, but some of it's a possibility. So these are kind of like speculation cards where you have people like Andrew Jones, and you have certainly Andrew Beltran, and Ortiz just made the Hall of Fame. And then as we talked about the Pujols already, the Mauer, and certainly Justin Verlander is almost a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame, as some of these players are just popular and people would be interested in purchasing them. So we go on to Carlos Beltran, Jim Thome, and Chipper Jones. These are cards in the 90s. And so if you're going to profit from selling your card collection, I have produced a series of YouTubes that basically help to give you tips in terms of what will kind of make me more likely to sell these cards, which cards are most likely to sell. So we have the tips are most valuable, how to recover from the baseball card market, what's happening now in terms of purchases by people looking to kind of make their collections and expand in their collections, and understand that even though the market has gone down some in the last few years from the COVID area where it kind of really skyrocketed, it's just a collection factor. Many people feel, and not something that the card industry is crashing. Certainly the key thing is Hall of Fame. So I did a whole series on Hall of Fame cards, who's going to make the Hall of Fame, who could make the Hall of Fame, kind of speculate on these players, where to sell your cards. So it's not just eBay is a place to sell. There's numerous others that I have a whole YouTube on where to sell your baseball card, and then kind of know how to invest in them. What's the best way to kind of get the most money for your card collection? So if you are interested in learning additional information about the baseball card industry, the history of baseball cards, profiting and investing in baseball cards, or ideas to bring the fun back to collecting, be sure to follow us below. Feel free to view our library of YouTube videos, and please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Also, check, if you will, our store, where we have available for sale many of the cards that you see on these videos. So wish you a great day, and